Good afternoon, gearheads. This is the 59 Ford Wheelman, and today's video is going to encompass automotive entomology or automotive name origins. I'm going to start with the car I probably know best in the world, which is the Ford Galaxie. In 1958, Ford put forth a show car, a concept car, that they called the Galaxie, which is French for, well, the Galaxy. It was a very futuristic car, looked more like a spaceship than an actual passenger car, and it had some very interesting features that Ford wanted to produce even though it was ahead of its time. In 1959, Ford made the decision to replace the Fairlane 500 as its upscale model. So what they did is they basically produced a restyling of the car. They took the Galaxie nameplate, dropped the La, but kept the French spelling, which is why it's spelled with an IE rather than a Y. Now, one of the themes that Ford had for this car was to take the Thunderbird roofline, which is a more squared-off, formal C-pillar, the rear roof support being the C-pillar, and they used that versus the Fairlane 500's wraparound back window. In carrying with the Thunderbird theme, you will note that on the Galaxie only and 59 only, Ford actually used the Thunderbird fender ornaments. The lower price models, the Custom 300, Fairlane, and Fairlane 500 all had gold anodized ball type fender ornaments, but they did use the Thunderbird ornaments on the Ford Galaxie. Ford's print ads and their TV commercials actually played up the marriage theme of the marriage of the Thunderbird and the Fairlane 500. It was an interesting styling concept. In keeping with the theme of outer space, there were some styling features that brought that into play as well. For example, in the roof crowns, you notice those are gold stars in the plastic inserts. Also, the grille was intended to be reminiscent of an outer space theme. Even though the paint on this is a little bit faded, you can see the plus sign looking things are supposed to be stars in a black background. It's supposed to look like stars floating in space. One area that's under discussed, where Ford tried to keep a space theme for the Galaxie only, was on the seats. The cloth inserts on the seat upholstery have got silver threads woven into them, and those silver threads at night, especially, it doesn't show up as well in the daytime, but at night those silver threads were intended to look like stars floating in a black background. When you drive this car into street lights, it's very dramatic and very beautiful. Now, the Galaxie nameplate remained Ford's flagship car throughout the 1960s with a few minor changes. In 1962, the 500 suffix was added to it, as they did in 1957 with Fairlane to make Fairlane 500. The 500 was a representation of Ford's participation in NASCAR-sponsored 500-mile endurance races. In addition, in 1964, Ford added a suffix called XL. And the XL, according to Ford literature, stood for extra lively, and it was a nod toward Ford's performance orientation starting at the early to mid-60s. Finally, in 1965, Ford added a different suffix, that could be put on the cars. It was LTD. Now, LTD, as you probably heard that name before, is kind of controversial, and no two sources agree on what LTD meant. Some people think it stood for Luxury Trim Decor. Others think it was an abbreviation of Limited. The closest thing to a consensus I can find, actually, is there's a lot of people who believe, and some Ford employees from the time claimed that it stood for Lincoln Type Design. Again, a lot of former employees claimed it was Lincoln Type Design. The Galaxie nameplate continued until the 1974 model year, when it was discontinued the end of that year, and in 1975, the LTD became the new upscale Ford. But that's another story for another video. Thanks for viewing, and as always, please drive safe, live your best life, and hope to see you on the road.